We'll meet again on yet another episode of News in Focus. Many thanks for always keeping it Ebru TV. I'm Linda Alela Mathambu. And now today we want to talk about sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is a disease, or rather a condition that very many people do not know about. If you have had a chance to know about sickle cell, probably your family member is suffering from this particular condition. And if the family member is not suffering from this particular condition, then you yourself is like you're suffering from that particular condition. And many people do not know that it exists. And this is a disease that needs a proper attention, needs extraordinary attention. And that's why we're here today ahead of the Sickle Cell Awareness Month, which is September. We want to understand, what is a sickle cell? What kinds of people get sickle cell? How do you get sickle cell? And the likes. And joining me on set is a couple. I think I'll start by introducing you. Right next to me is Richard Ochieng Juma. Richard Ochieng Juma is a husband to a sickle cell warrior. And of course, right next to him is the wife, who is Ruth. I'm wondering, Ruth are Richard, and I'm wondering, oh, what really happened? So of course, Ruth is a warrior, sickle cell warrior. And this is a lady who's fought battles that, I mean, we're here today to get to listen to her story. Incredible story you would want to share, you know, and we'll be having their numbers running on screen just in case you'd want to offer a helping hand, because you realize the sickle cell is quite a disease, you know, like it will drain you financially and such like things. And that's the reason why it would be necessary for you to, you know, extend that helping hand if need be. And of course, right next to Ruth is Dr. Fatma Abdallah. Dr. Fatma Abdallah, many thanks for finding time to be here with us.
You're welcome.
Of course, when you get to hear about a disease or a condition, it's automatic that you'll need a specialist. You'll need a doctor who understands the condition pretty well to take us through. And of course, I'm sure it's going to be informative for you back at home. So stay tuned as we get to understand this. Because today it could be her, tomorrow it could be you. You do not know. And aside from that, we want to say we want to tame this particular condition. But how do we get to do it? Karibu, don't go anywhere. So I'll come to you guys. Asanteni sana for finding time to be here with us. Like we said, we're going to do it comfortable in layman's language for every other person to understand it. And Dr. we start by saying, what is sickle cell? Because like you said, or like I said earlier on, most of us do not know that this condition exists. I have a nephew who's a warrior. And believe me, I only got to know about sickle cell then. And even if I've heard of it before, I did not get some time, or maybe I did not take time to get to understand it. And it is a disease that is, you know, like spreading, like it not really spreading. I don't think I should use the word spreading, but anyway, let's just go straight to the point. What is sickle cell?
Okay, sickle cell is a condition that affects the red blood cells. The cells in our blood that give our blood the red color.
Yep.
And it's actually an inherited condition where instead of those cells being nicely round and discoid, they are shaped like a sickle. Like, you know, the way a new moon looks? Yeah. So that's why they got that name, sickle cell, because that's what they look like. And yet normal red cells shouldn't look like that. They should look discoid, end-on circular. So because of that change in shape, which is, of course, I said it's inherited. It means it's a genetic abnormality that comes from the parents. Then that cell is unable to do its usual functions efficiently. The main function of red cells in the blood is really to take oxygen from the lungs and to the tissues, the rest of the body. Because, as you know, without oxygen, living things can't live. So that is its main function. And it must go right to the tips of the fingers and tips of the toes and the ends of the brain. Every single cell in the body must get oxygen from these red cells. And now to get to those end cells, they usually, the smaller blood vessels are not straight like a water pipe. They are tortuous, they are curved, they have very sharp corners. And so this sickle shape, when it gets to those corners, it cannot negotiate them. And because it can't negotiate those corners, it gets stuck. And when it gets stuck, blood cannot flow properly, so oxygen cannot get to those cells at the end of those blood vessels. And if those cells can't get oxygen, then you can imagine that life for those cells becomes a big challenge.
Yeah.
And so because they get stuck also, even the rest of the flow of the blood, which will be bringing in food to those cells and taking away the rubbish to other places like the kidneys. So even the normal flow of blood is affected. So it's not just oxygen delivery, I mean, to these tissues. Food delivery, removal of waste, and many, many other substances get affected. Because you know, in our body, the main transport system is the blood. It's fluid, it must keep moving, and it's being pumped by the heart, and it goes round and back to the heart, and then round again.
All right.
So if anywhere there's a block, you can imagine like on the roads, if maybe a lorry has collapsed or overturned and blocked the road completely, you can imagine what can happen.
What will happen here?
Some cars can't go and some can't come.
Can't come,
So
yeah.
that's really, in a summary,
What?
how sickle cell affects the body and what it is.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. I think I'll come to you. Before I ask Dr. what are the signs and symptoms, and can it be managed or can it be treated like fully? How did you come to know that you had sickle cell? Was it diagnosed well, like at birth? And of course, at that tender age, you do not know it. So it needs your parents to come in and just try to explain to you that this and this and this.
Okay. Okay, kwa
Unaweza tumia hata lugha ya Kiswahili ina shida.
Okay, niligrow nikiwa najua niko na sickle cell at the age of 9 years. Cause hapo ndo nilianza kupata crisis, na luckily nilikuwa na step mom mwenye alikuanga a doctor.
All right.
So yeye ndiye alikuja akakuja akajua hiyo symptoms ya sickle cell. Because for a long time, hiyo nikiwa utotoni nilikuwa napata too much of crisis, lakini hawakuwa najua ni nini inafanyika kwa mwili yangu. So yeye ndiye alikuja akataka kujua ni nini inanisumbua haswa, kama yeye venye yako daktari. So yeye ndio alienda akaenda akafanya uchunguzi. Alikuanga daktari Kemri. Yeah.
All right.
So venye walienda wakafanya uchunguzi ndio akapata niko na hiyo shida. So all along ndo nikakaa nikijua niko na sickle cell. Yes.
Well, Daktari, she must have been a very lucky kid, having stayed with it for 9 good years, because as you put it, it's hereditary. It's genetical, so that means she had it from birth.
Absolutely.
But all this while fighting the crisis and everything up to the 9th year, just get to come to know. And of course that will bring me to a question later on. But before that, let's talk to the husband right here. And I can imagine, well, you did not know her right from that time.
Really.
And here you come, you're meeting a beautiful lady, and you decide this is the woman. Did you get to know that she is suffering from sickle cell?
Not
Did she
really.
tell you?
Not really. She didn't tell me at the start, because when we were engaging in a relationship, I came to be told by a relative.
All right.
A relative who just called
Well,
me.
you were
and
already married, or you were?
not really. We were just still lovers, but we are almost getting married.
Yes.
So a relative, after a relative knowing that we had a relationship, so he called me and he told me that I can see you are related to this lady. Unfortunately, she has a disease called sickle cell.
Yes.
And this disease is more expensive to manage.
Yeah.
And again, this is a lady who, when she gets pregnant, and the date of delivery or the day of delivery, she will deliver well, but she will die.
All right.
Yeah, so I got shocked. Then it's like he was so much concerned about me now leaving the lady, because he didn't want me to get into very expensive kind of life.
The person was just trying to
So
help you.
just as a normal human being, I
Yeah.
got shocked. But I sat down and analyzed and realized that, okay, even if you get related, I mean, you have a relationship with a lady who doesn't have any condition in, and as far as health is concerned, maybe you never know.
Yeah.
Maybe the date of delivery might, due
Be
to
the
complications,
same,
he might
yeah.
die. Or maybe a person can get a condition as she still grows.
Yeah.
So I just decided, okay, let me leave everything to God. Me, I'm marrying this lady
All right.
because I loved her actually.
Great.
So I just married her.
Great, great,
Yeah.
great, great.
Okay,
We
then
have such
afterwards,
women,
after getting the information from a relative, that's
Yes.
when I asked her.
All right.
Then she had the courage now to explain
open up.
everything to
And we
me.
want to understand, why is it that it's so hard for someone to get to open up? And we'll also come to understand, how is it, how's the journey, how has the journey been with the two of you, trying to handle her. And as we say, Daktari, the moment there's a sickness being mentioned, and then there's a question of managing and not treating, then that automatically tells you that this is something that the person is bound to live with for the rest of time. Let's come
true.
to the signs and symptoms. What are the signs and symptoms? Can it be diagnosed as early, as one is born? Because I can imagine staying with all these crises, with all the pains and everything, and there are medicines that someone needs to take on a daily basis, and you do not know. It can be a hell lot of work.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you. The signs and symptoms actually come very early.
Yes.
Usually the first time it presents is when the baby is 6 months. And it's very typical. The hands, both hands and both feet will swell, and the baby will be crying 24 hours, no matter what you do. A lot of pain and that swelling. And that's the way they present first. And if the mother or the parents take the child to hospital, and the health worker can recognize that, then immediately they should think, this is possibly sickle cell. I need to send to the nearest referral hospital that can do that test and diagnose it. So that's at 6 months.
Right.
But if that is missed and the baby grows, they will of course continue getting what she called crisis. When now that lorry overturns on the road and blocks everything, that's what we call crisis.
The crisis,
so we tell the parents to look for certain signs. One, yellowness of the eyes. It's like a persistent yellowness. Some people, get yellow eyes, for example, they get hepatitis, isn't it? Rarely malaria, but it goes after but this one is continuously, day in, day out, month in, month out, the yellowness of eyes. So that's something parents can look at, because they can see, when I look at you, I can see your eyes. If they're yellow, I can tell. So that's one. Then the other thing is, this child is ever sick, more sick than other children. So in a family, parents should be able to recognize that. How come this child falls sick more frequently than the others? They get infections frequently, coughs, and because of the crises they keep getting, they also become anemic. And when somebody is anemic, doing simple exercises or even simple work like climbing up the stairs becomes a challenge for them. So they easily become breathless. So the parents should notice, maybe this child, how come this child not playing, is just lying on the couch? And when you tell the child, go play, they don't get up to play. Children love playing and running around. So that's another sign. Parents can easily pick. And then the other thing is that if they happen to go to a hospital, what we find most of the time, by the time they finally get referred to Kenyatta, you get this history. Oh, this child was admitted so many times for the last so many years. And every time we are admitted, the child is given blood transfusion and then we are sent home. So health workers need to ask themselves, why should this child keep coming back with low hemoglobin? We transfuse and then we just tell them, okay, sasa mtoto ako sawa, go home. We should think back. Why can't we investigate and find out, why should this child, if this child is eating well and the parents are feeding this child well, why should this child keep getting recurrent anemia? That's another very common sign. And very commonly, that's the history we get. And even the doctors, when they send a letter, you will see it written. Admitted in January, transfused 1 unit, discharged, admitted in April, like that.
So automatically
those are the usual common signs. And then if the child continues to grow, actually they do not grow as normally as other children. We call it in medical terms that the milestones are delayed.
Yeah.
So that is something, even at the clinic, you know, the clinic, the children's clinic,
the
where these
routine.
kids go for immunization, they go for regular checkup. So the nurses in those clinics should also be asking question. The weight, that's the first thing the child is measured, the weight, the height, and sometimes they also do the mid-arm
mark, yeah.
circumference. When those are below normal, they should ask questions and say, I think you need to be seen by a doctor or a pediatrician to find out why is this child having delayed milestones continuously.
All
So
right.
in summary, those would be
the
some
thing.
of the signs.
Okay, thank you. Of course, I'll come to the causes in as much as we're saying it's hereditary. We want to understand what kind of person, what kind of parent, or maybe a sickler or something. Eventually, how do we get a child who has sickle cell and everything? But before that, let's talk about how you've dealt with the crisis. I can imagine, and I'm saying it out of experience because I have a nephew I've stayed with, and I can tell you it was a hassle. And it's been a hassle. It's still a hassle. So I can imagine how it was for you. And this time around, it's not your child. And you know, even the fears, of course, you've had a time to be told that, well, this is hereditary. So chances are you would get kids who have sickle cell and everything. So how has it been for you?
Yes, it has been very rough for me actually, in terms of financially, because since I married, you know, it has been an issue of going to the hospital. That is, he has a clinic at Kenyatta.
Yeah.
And you know, anytime he goes to Kenyatta for
It's
clinic,
money.
tests are there, medication and everything, and all these are money. So really, it has been very, very expensive for me, but I thank God because God has been taking care of that.
Yeah.
And what made me feel so happy, when she was pregnant initially, that is our first child, I got shocked because I knew now I have a wife who's sickle cell anemic,
So
and I'm
chances are
spending
very
a lot. It's so too expensive for me. Now again, I might get a child who is
Who
also
has
sickle cell
anemia.
anemic. But through God's grace, really she got pregnant. And imagine she just delivered normally, just in a simple hospital like that is Kiambu District Hospital.
Yeah.
Because when she was going to the clinic, we used to be told that she has to deliver in Kenyatta.
Yeah, in Kenyatta. Yeah,
But now when the time of
specialist.
delivery came, in fact, I was not financially fit. So I just ignored the issue of Kenyatta.
Yeah.
I took her to the nearest hospital, and those guys declined to admit
To
her
admit her,
because
yeah.
of the condition. Then something just told me, can I just take a taxi, we go to Kiambu. Then when we went there, actually, she did not even take more than 5 minutes, then she delivered in a very normal way. Then she delivered just a healthy child. After some period of time, the child was tested and it was found to be okay. That is just but a carrier.
A carrier, yes.
And a carrier, you know, is not,
Of course,
the
you
child
don't
is
have
not
the hassle,
infected.
but chances are
Yeah.
now the grandchild might.
True. So after that, we were told we were advised by the doctor not to have another child.
Another child,
So
alright.
it took us some time because when you find the difference between the first one and the last one, it's 10 years, you know, it's a lot. So I decided, okay, can we leave it at one child? But later on, she said she needed another child.
Alright.
There's nothing I could do.
Yes.
And we discussed about the condition and everything. He said she leaves everything unto God.
Okay.
So again, we got the other child, also in a very normal scenario, at Kenyatta now.
Yeah.
And the child is also just a carrier, but not a sickler.
Of course, these fears.
Yeah.
And I also want to get to her before I come to you, Dr. so that you can give us the causes and above all, you know, what at the end of the day you have a career. What do we expect? And amid all these fears, how do you handle it? I want to understand, why is it that you thought it wasn't good enough to tell him at first? You know, they experience these things. You know, at some point, you know, the stigma and all that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a woman. I want to be loved, but there's this fear of what I'm going through. And sometimes we opt not to say it. Is it a good thing not to say it, or is it a good thing to say it?
Okay, ilikuwa a bit challenge cause ukimagine zile crisis zenye unapitia all the time uko kwa hospitali, uko kwa ward unatoka, tena uko kwa ward unatoka, sometimes kazi za nyumbani huwezi fanya vizuri. So unaweza imagine ukiwa na boyfriend utamwambia aje?
Ukweli.
Utamwambia mimi niko mgonjwa, kuna kazi zingine siwezi nikafanya. So hiyo ndio ilikuwanga a very big challenge.
Yeah. Ukaona afadhali ufiche.
Yeah.
Well, she would be forgiven for that.
Absolutely.
But I think, Daktari, there has to be a mode of counseling, a mode of getting this stigma out of the family members and the sickler, or rather the warrior themselves, you know. And how is how do we go about it? Because as you put it, if it's hereditary, if I'm not saying it, then chances are very high. I've had a session with them and they've explained that, yeah, if you're a carrier and then you get married to a carrier, chances are very high you're going to get a sickler.
Yeah.
And these are the cases that we want to reduce. I do not want to go through this pain and have somebody else going through the same pain. So the only way we can control this is by people being open, you know, like before they get married, and we get to see, I'm a carrier, you're a carrier, we cannot do this and everything, and as much as love is binding us together. How do, I think we should just start systematically, the causes, briefly, and then how can we handle this, and how can we at least limit this condition?
Okay, causes, in genetic diseases, we are yet to understand exactly what it is. But sickle cell is thought by all the doctors who've studied it and research on it, that it was actually an environmental way of dealing with the environment and allowing the individuals to survive. What kind of environment? The environment of malaria. This condition actually, like in Kenya, is found in what we call highly endemic malaria zones.
In fact, that is a question, let me just cut you short. That is a question I wanted to add. It is commonly the size of Nyanza, some bit of Western, and the coastal region.
Yes.
I cannot remember a Kikuyu I have met who has sickle cell. I'm in a group of sickle cell, and all of them are like Luos, Luyas, and
Kissis, exactly, and the coastal people. That's because in Kenya, though we have malaria all over, but these 3 provinces and the counties that fall into those provinces, now we have to talk of counties, are where it's a highly malaria endemic zones. The rest of Kenya is less. So if you're going to draw stars, you'll give like 5 stars for Western Nyanza and Coast, and the rest of Kenya places you'll give 3 star, 2 star, 1 star, some no star at all. So in these areas, because a lot of people were dying from severe malaria infection, as a way of evolution, this is what the scientists have postulated, as a way of evolution to make those individuals survive in those highly malaria endemic zones, there was this genetic change. And you find actually carriers of sickle cell usually don't suffer malaria. The malaria parasite, when it gets into that red cell of that individual who is a carrier, oh, they find the environment so hostile, the parasite dies.
all right.
So the individual never suffers malaria. And so you see, this way, if those individuals won't suffer malaria, they will survive, they will live, grow up, and have children, and pass on the generation. You see, that's what evolution is about. That you cannot wipe out all the human beings in one area. Some have to survive and grow up to be adults and have children and pass it on. So that's what scientists believe was how it came about.
Okay.
But unfortunately, for carriers, it is a protective mechanism and they have a higher survival rate. But then for those who are not carriers and they get the full-blown sickle cell, then for them is actually double trouble. So how do we very simply differentiate a carrier from one who has it? When 2 carriers get married and the gene of sickle cell of one and the gene of sickle cell of the other partner get combined in one baby, then that baby becomes full-blown sickle cell.
All right.
Now, for that to happen, according to mathematical probability, for those 2 carriers getting married, it's a probability of 1 out of 4 children.
Okay.
So if that couple have 4 children, one only should get full-blown sickle cell. The other 3 should be, one should be normal, and then the other 2 will be carriers.
All right.
So that's how it comes. It has to come from both parents.
Okay.
So actually, this very lucky couple,
yeah.
they will not have ever a child with full-blown sickle cell. What they will have, because she has it full-blown, she will just pass it on to each child, but because he doesn't have, the other half would be normal, so they'll all just be carriers, and so they really don't have to worry about they really didn't have to wait 10 years to
Right.
have another baby.
Aside from that, actually, I was having a conversation with them, and they told me they're not intending to have
Another
any other
one.
baby. And of course, there's the question of family planning. We all want to understand, while kids come from God.
Yes.
But at some point in time, if you decide that I'm not going to get another one, then it means family planning comes on board. But because time is not on our side,
Okay.
of course, we'll have another session next week, and
Okay.
Daktari will still be here to enlighten us more. How do you get to know that this is a career and I'm a career too, so we're not going to be compatible, or what? All these logistics behind sickle cell anemia. It's very, very important for you to know. Remember the numbers of the couple right here, are right on your screen for you to get to know, contact them. Like you said, Richard says it's it's quite expensive to manage this condition, and any helping hand would be welcome anytime. So we're going to leave it at that. And of course, we're hoping to hear from Daktari come next week, and we'll be having incredible young guys, of course, joining her, so that we get to know how do you deal with it, how do you handle this particular situation. And we're just hoping that it's going to be a game of the past. Remember, if you can, drop into the nearest health center and donate blood. Ahead of Sickle Cell Month, these people need blood. So transfusion is very, very important. If you can, please do that. Many thanks for always keeping it news in focus. I'm Linda Alela Mathambu. Keep it next time so that we get to understand sickle cell even at a deeper perspective. Thank you.